This right here is probably the most important thing when it comes to mixing. This is all that I put on my master. I used to make it so hard on myself. I used to add a ton of EQs to each individual sound. Something I'm gonna say right now, this is the most important thing about the way I mix my beats and the way I think most people should mix their beats. Everybody talks about this. I remembered something the other day about my production career. At the very beginning of me starting to make beats, I was very obsessed with watching mixing tutorials on YouTube. Not making melodies from scratch tutorials, not making beats tutorials. It was simply mixing tutorials. I wanted to learn how to make my beats sound good before I even knew how to make beats. And I used to sit there and just watch for hours on how to get the correct sound. I used to watch these videos of these engineers going so in depth with how to use their EQ on each different sound and how to get the kick and the 808 to sit at -6 dB, and you got to make sure that it's the loudest thing on it was just a whole rabbit hole that I went down. And I'm sitting here 5 years later thinking about how I used to overcomplicate it so much. And if you're watching this and you're just starting out, I'm here to tell you, you don't need to do the most. Actually, doing the most hurts in the long run. Doing less is actually more. I know it sounds cliche and you've probably heard that a million times, but it's the truth. And you got to take it from somebody who did the most at the very beginning, and 5 years later I don't do half the stuff that I do now and my beats sound way better. So let's get into it. Probably gonna start with the loop just so we can make something quick. Okay, so pause. Right now, I'm going to send it to the mixer track, whatever you want to call it, the sample chop, your melody. And I don't go based off the numbers. It's strictly by feeling. I just know that I want my drums to be a little bit louder than the melody. So what I'm going to do is just pull the volume of the melody down. That way the drums don't have to be so cranked in the end. I don't base it off of numbers, but this middle area right here, I don't need a specific decibel metering read, but I mean just nothing up here hitting almost peaking. So down here somewhere should give us good enough headroom for the drums. Also, another thing is some people like to wait till the very end when they finish making the melody, they've added all the sounds, to then add the effects plugins. I'm a little bit different. I know some people like to do it this way too, but I like to add the effects as I'm adding the sounds, just because it clears up some frequency spaces in the frequency range, and it might add some room for other sounds to add. It might spark inspiration. At least for me, that's my process. So what I'm going to do now is kind of just add some different effects to make the melody sound good. And yeah. Ooh, that little shit. What did I do? Let's try it. Fire! Holy shit. Alright, I sent this sound to the mixer track as well, and something I'm gonna say right now, this is the most important thing about the way I mix my beats and the way I think most people should mix their beats. Everybody talks about this. It's leveling. If you've never heard that before, basically all it is just leveling the different volumes of each sound to where they fit good. Before you put any effects on, or before you worry about compression or EQ, anything like that, you gotta make sure your levels are right. Just make sure everything's sitting well within each other, because if it's not sitting well within each other, no amount of effects plugins, no amount of compression, reverb is gonna make it sound better. It starts with leveling. So I sent the piano to the mixer track, and I'm literally just gonna pull it up or down to get it to sit well with the sample chop. Again, this is just a taste type of thing. You can have it louder or quieter depending on just your style, whatever you're trying to go for. I'm not looking at the numbers, so don't worry about that. It's just feeling and just using your ears. Don't use your eyes. Ooh, I like that. At this point, you kind of already figured it out. Just going to level it and add effects if needed. And notice how I'm doing the leveling before any of the EQs and stuff like that. That's super important. And with any effects that you add, whether it raises or lowers the volume, you can always go back in and just mess with the fader to put it back to where you had it. All right, I think the melody is in a good spot. Like I said, I'm not trying to do too much with this beat. Let's go ahead and move on to the drums. Notice how I'm just going back in and leveling these different things as I'm making the beat. Just messing with the volume, that's it. Let's talk 808s. Since I got it laid down already, I got the pattern, it's fire. This right here, depending on the genre you make, you guys know that I kind of mostly make hip hop, R&B type of stuff. The 808 is probably the most important thing when it comes to mixing, as far as where it sits in the mix. Meaning, like, if this one sound is too loud, the rest of your mix is probably gonna be shit. Once you add the limiter on the master or whatever you're using, like a soft clipper, it's gonna hit that first, and everything else is just gonna compress to this 808. So leveling this is the most important part. Write that down, just remember it. When you're making hip-hop, R&B type of beats and you have an 808, where this sits is very important. I'm assuming you guys want your drums to really knock if you're making this style of music. I know I do, and I know I did when I was producing when I first started, and I thought the solution was just to crank the living shit out of these drums, like especially the kick in 808. I wanted them to be so loud compared to everything else. What I have learned, and what you should experiment with if you're like that and you're cranking your 808s and kicks all the way up as loud as they can go without sounding like shit, try just turning them down. Hear me out. Turning them down has completely changed my mixes, hands down. Everything sounds smooth. By the time I run it through the master chain, I export it, I go listen to it in the car, it's not rumbling like crazy. The kick isn't punching too hard to where it's like hard to listen to. Turn it down. Just turn it down. I'm going to show you the difference right now, and you guys tell me what you think sounds better. I recommend headphones or speakers for this next part. Where I have it sitting right now is perfect for me, but listen to what happens when I boost it. It's just so super distorted, and it's just like making the rest of the beat duck. If you can hear that, it just doesn't sound good. Like, as much as you think that that's probably gonna make your beats knock and just turning it up is the solution, it's really not. And I'll show you guys why when we get to the mastering chain. Now, on the flip side of that, don't have it so low to where you can barely even feel it, because then your beats just sound thin. You just want to get it to that little sweet spot where it's punching, but it's just sitting with the mix. It's not overpowering anything else. Alright, I think the drums are pretty much done, and as you can see, I haven't sent any of them to the mixer track. All of the leveling I did was done in the channel rack as I was programming them using the volume knobs. It's not complicated. Don't make it complicated. I used to make it so hard on myself. I used to add a ton of EQs to each individual sound. I used to stress over hitting these -6 dB marks right here. Like, no, just listen, feel it out. And I get that this comes with time, and if you're not there yet, like, just keep putting in the reps. That's all I can tell you. Once you finish the beat and you've got everything sounding the way you want it just by doing levels, then you go to the master chain. Are you guys ready for my super in-depth, crazy looking master chain with like 20 different plugins? Well, you're not getting it. This is all that I put on my master. It is literally a soft clipper. It's like one of the most like classic, it's literally called the classic clippers. This is what everybody back when I started making beats was using. I got this plugin for free and I use it on all my beats. This is the only thing you need to know about mastering. The soft clipper output or the limiter output, set it to around -1, -0.1 or -0.3 depending on like how loud your beat is. You just don't want to be going over the -0.1 mark. Once you get into 0 or any positive numbers, you're clipping. It's technically not the right thing to do when mixing, so I just leave it at -0.1 and it gets the job done for me. Once you have that set, you set the input gain until you're not ducking the volume when the drums hit, like I was mentioning earlier. I like to push it to distortion a little bit and then just start pulling it back, which is what I'm going to do now. Right about there is pretty good. One thing I do like to check before I run it into the clipper, which I forgot to mention, was just checking the frequency range. This kind of goes against what I was saying earlier about like not using your eyes to mix, but you can see like you really want like that flat response the whole way around. Most people use an EQ on their master bus. I like to just go turn down the 808 or whatever it is that's being too loud. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the clipper real quick and just see what I'm working with. As you can see, my levels were pretty damn good. The highs are around the same level as the lows. And this works with any EQ plugin. You don't even need the Pro Q3. Let me get the stock EQ. You can see it's pretty much the same thing. Any visualizing EQ will do the job here. If there's anything that you hear that's sticking out too much once you add like the soft clipper and the processing on your mastering chain, you can always just leave on the processing you just did and then go back and turn it down. Like I think the clap is a little too sharp. So all you do is pull it down. It's leveling. Just listen to me when I say this. If you're going to take anything away from this video, just make sure your levels are right before you start doing any sort of limiting, compression, clipping to any of your sounds, EQ, whatever it is. Don't mess with it until you got your levels right. This is a little bonus tip. You don't need one of these. I like to use it just to see like where I'm at in terms of like how loud my entire track is. It's called a loudness meter. If you don't know how to use one of these, all you're really looking for is the true peak. I usually like mine to sit at what I set the output of my clipper to, which was -0.1, and then the integrated LUFS right here. If you don't know what LUFS is, it's basically just like a rule of thumb to keep in mind to see where your song is in terms of loudness compared to other songs on streaming platforms. For me, I like my integrated LUFS to be anywhere from -6 to -10. In that range is like pretty good. It's pretty loud. So let's see if my numbers are correct after doing all the leveling and using my soft clipper. Yeah, so you can see -9.5-ish, -0.3, that's fine as long as it's not over the positive numbers. This is perfect. That right there is how I mix my beats in 2025. It's taken me 5 years to get like a pretty comfortable sound. I would say I don't really have an issue with the way my beats sound anymore. I don't struggle with getting them to sound good like I used to. I hope you guys learned something from this video. At the very least, I hope that there was one thing that you didn't know and you can implement the next time you're mixing your beats, and you can just get them to sound the way you want them to sound. Because at the end of the day, we all want our drums to knock, and we all want our beats to be as loud as what we hear when we're listening to our favorite artists on Spotify or Apple Music. Just to recap some takeaways for this video: don't make it more complicated than it has to be. Learn what leveling is. Learn how to choose the right sounds. Sound selection is very important. If you have good sounds, 50% of the job is already done. You just have to make sure that they're sitting well within each other and you're pretty much good to go. And lastly, don't rely so much on effects plugins to make your beats knock. Don't think that this one plugin that you have to spend money on or that you have to add to every sound is going to make your beats sound the way you want them to. It really just comes down to good sounds and leveling those good sounds. If you guys did learn something from this video, go down in the comments and let me know. I appreciate y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.